Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I really had fun with this class. I've taught a couple others that were similar to it, but I especially had this idea since we're kind of getting to the Christmas season. And I know a lot of us are looking for meaningful ways to have gifts for our family or just to share more with our family. So these are some ideas that I've collected, and I'm just going to show you ways that you can share your family history. And it doesn't always have to be sitting down at the computer looking at Ancestry or FamilySearch. It can be meaningful ways that will apply to each person a little differently. And so you can tailor these ways of sharing for the person that you're giving to or for the person that you want to share to. So I guess we could call this turning memories to magic, bringing your ancestors to life with memories, using artifacts, photos, and stories to go beyond the ordinary with family history. And basically, what we are doing is just trying to remember our loved ones, remember our ancestors, and help those who come after us to remember them as well. If we don't make sure that our next generation will know who we are or know who the people are that came before us, then a person can effectually cease to exist. So we want to make sure we keep the memories of our loved ones alive for future generations. So basically, we do that through artifacts. Now, typically, when we use the word artifact, we may think of a museum or maybe an archaeological site. Well, that is exactly what we're doing. It is a historical object that is man-made, and we examine it to better understand the culture of the humans who made them. So when we talk about a family artifact, we are talking about something that has a special value to our family. So a physical thing, maybe a photo, maybe it can be a story, a voice recording. So something that belonged to someone who is no longer living, and it tells an important story. It helps us to remember them. And so these can be things that have been passed down for generations, or they can be newer items. For example, if you happen to be a new parent, then I would say some of the things that your baby was given or used can be an artifact. I know I have a little box of my daughter's favorite toys and clothing, so that can be kind of a newer thing, or it can be something old. And I have a lot of things that I've been given that are old that is more the description of what you would think of when you think of artifact. Okay, so why are these important? They're important because the person is no longer here, but we can read or listen or touch an object that that person has used, and that has meaning and helps to keep them alive. So I am going to show you some of the ways, some are very easy, some are more involved, that we can share our family history through artifacts or through objects, stories, pictures, vocal recordings. But first, we have to think about a couple things. So if we want to create an artifact out of our family history, we want to choose, of course, what that's going to be, whether it's an object, a story, a picture. And we want to attach a person and a story with it so that it has meaning. For instance, I have a wooden spoon that was my grandmother's, that she used it in her kitchen, and it's pretty old and pretty beat up. If I were just to give that to my daughter without any explanation, she would likely just throw it in the trash bin. It's nothing valuable to it, just in its physical self. But if I were to explain to her, hey, this was your great grandmother's, and she had it for years in her kitchen. Maybe I could also tell a story about some of the meals I ate there or what she liked to cook. Then that makes such a different object. So instead of becoming something that we might throw away, it becomes something interesting and something valuable. And we need to share it so that our future generations will know who it belonged to and why is this old wooden spoon important. So I'm just going to here are a few artifacts that I have considered, that I have used, and we're going to talk a little bit about these, and then I'm going to go in depth with about 3 of them. That's about all the time we have, but don't worry, I'll teach you the tricks and tips to just fit about any budget, any creative inkling, any time that you have. So here are some examples. Family recipes. I have got a whole stack of recipes that came from my grandmother. And in that stack, there's a recipe that my mom wrote. There's a recipe that my great grandma wrote. So it's really special. In fact, I have a recipe that each of my great grandmothers wrote. And it's something that's really amazing for our family, but I'm the only one that has it. So really, my cousins are not benefiting from this, even my sibling. And so I want to do something to share that bit of our family history, share those family recipes. And I'll talk a little bit about that more. And then next we have family objects. So you can see I chose the old wooden spoons because that's what I have. I've got a lot of other objects that just might seem like junk, but they have a lot of meaning to me. Now, if I never do anything with those, well, they're just going to be discarded as junk, likely, highly likely. But if I attach meaning to them, then they will be passed on and they will have significance. Family hobbies. So this next one, you can see these flowers here. It was just my birthday, and my daughter took me to a beautiful pressed flower workshop. And as we were doing that workshop, I realized, wow, my grandma, Tiny, would just love this. She loved all things nature. She loved anything that she could create with her hands. I walked over to the table and I saw some pressed violets there, and those were her favorite flowers. She loved to find wild violets. And so I thought, okay, I am going to do this with flowers that my grandmother loved in colors that she loved, and it'll be a memento to her. So I knew that this is something my grandmother, she probably made one of these back in the, 50s or whenever they were doing pressed flowers. So I kind of wanted to do something, and I was remembering her as I did this. Okay, next we have family artwork. This can be a picture of a house, a picture of a piece of land, maybe even a car or a fruit tree if there's something that your family did with that. I know that my grandma kept a garden, and it was a flower garden, but it was just all of her flowers were in perfectly straight rows. So you would look at it, it kind of looked like a flower farm plot. And that would make a great picture. A picture of a person. Or how about we could make a piece of artwork with some fabric that they owned, or so there's so many ways that you can go here. And that one we're going to go into depth with. Okay, old photo albums. Now, looking at this picture here, hopefully most of you are aware that we need to get those photos out of those old sticky photo albums. They are acidic and they as you keep them in there, they will dull your picture and ruin your picture over time. And you may have already seen that. I do have some really old pictures that are just very faded away and hard to see. So we can take those photo albums and digitize them and make them into something else. We could print off a book. We could print off a picture, a collage to hang on the wall. There's so many things that we could do, but it's really important to make sure those are recorded. Again, I may find an old, my daughters may find an old pile of photos that I know who they are, but nobody else does. When my grandmother was 99, I sat down with her and she had a box of photos. And I went through each one and it really exhausted her. But I realized she is the last one on this earth that would know who those people are. And some of them she didn't know. And it was really frustrating for her. She would look at it and say, I just don't know who that is. And I felt so sad, that here's this picture and nobody knows who this person is. Okay, so clothing. Obviously, we can pass clothing on. We could make a shadow box out of little pieces of clothing. We could even hang it up as artwork or make something out of the fabric. So there are a lot of things that we can do there. Recordings. We can put recordings up on FamilySearch or somehow put the recordings in a place that we could share with our family, like a family website, or make a digital copy and send to our family. So that is really amazing. I do have some recordings, for instance, of my grandmother. I have the last voicemail that she sent me, and that is something that is very valuable. I mean, when I hear that voice, I can really see my grandma. Okay, family books. So this can be maybe a book about family history. Maybe you have a book that is about your family. Well, that is something that is really valuable to pass down and to share with others, maybe adding your own footnote to the book, talking about your family and your life. It could also be books that were precious to someone, or maybe a favorite book that they had, and that has meaning as well, just to be able to handle that object that your loved one used has significance and has weight, and it's really a good touchstone to keep in touch with your family. Family stories. This, you can see there's a little bit of a story on there with the tiny print, but a lot of times we may have something that we laugh about or that we tell a story about. And it's really important to write those little vignettes down, write those little stories. Right next to the family stories, you can see there is a picture. What I did with this family story was it was a really small story and I expanded it. I turned it into a children's book. And that took me quite a while to do, but it was so meaningful. So as you're looking at stories or writings that people have put down, think, would this make a good story? And we're going to talk about that a little later too. And then we have family trees. So this right here is a blank family tree. I purchased this as a poster off of Amazon. We're going to go into family trees a little more, but there are so many options here, from really expensive ones to free ones. So family trees is a great way to share your family history. The next one I have is family birthdays. This is a little picture of the people in my close family. So my husband, my daughters, my son-in-law, these are our birth flowers. And I found this online once when I was, looking for something, and I just love it. I think it's so cute. kind of small here on this slide, but it has each of our names beside it. And that's a very meaningful way to share your family history. You could do this for relatives that are farther back and then talk about them. Of course, if I were to do it for a relative farther back, I probably would put right next to it or somewhere accessible who the person was, what was a life sketch of their story. So again, this picture has meaning and it's something interesting.
Michelle, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So on your photos,
Uh-huh.
what do you do? When for those of us who still have some of our pictures in plastic sheets that are going to destroy
Yeah.
them, what do you, if you take them out of that, what do you store them? How do you store them? I mean,
Okay,
I
that is a great question. So I actually have taught a whole class about that, and I'll show you where you can find that. But even being out of that album and just in a stack in an archival box, so you can buy boxes that are archival quality that have no acid in them and are light, tight, and airtight, so they keep it nice. So I would taking it out of the photo albums and just putting it in some kind of an acid-free container. And you can find those by looking on Amazon, just, acid-free photo storage.
thank you.
You're
That
very
helps.
welcome. Okay, so here's some other things that are artifacts that may not really seem like it, but you can see the financial records here. This was a logbook that my great grandfather kept. And the book is falling apart. But as I looked at it, it's so interesting. He talks about the cows that they had and how much they paid for the cows and what they did. Oh, the cows' names. So, we have Matilda and Bertha, and just I loved looking through this book because, first of all, he held this book. Secondly, that's his handwriting. I mean, that is he put his hand to that paper and wrote those things. And I think that's so cool. So these are things that you might just look at, oh, it's an old bill or but anything that has your family's handwriting or words on it is something that's really, really valuable to me. Okay, next we have personal histories and personal journals. I'll talk about that and give you some ideas a little bit later. Handiwork and recipes. So this is a picture of a little quilt that my great great aunt made and was rescued from a fire that the family had. And I just think, wow, it's really amazing. Now the actual quilt itself is kind of falling apart. It actually has tears in it. So I'm really glad that I have a good picture of it because I can at least remember what it was like. So I do still have the physical quilt. Okay, then we have memorabilia. This right here is a typewriter that my grandfather brought back from World War II from Germany. And my aunt said that he got it out of a bombed out office building. And I that made me really curious about where my grandpa was. So I have talked to him about where he was in the war and what his experience was. And this thing it's probably 50 pounds. It is heavy. I can just imagine the effort that my grandfather went through to go retrieve this out of an office building and to carry it around Europe with him. I don't know how long he did, but it's really heavy. So that has a little story to it. I've got it sitting in my office, and it's really fun to think of him when I look at that typewriter. The next one here, this is school and work records, and this is kind of goes along with financial records. It gives you a little picture of what your ancestor was like. A lot of times there will be teacher comments. I know my teacher comments always said that I talk too much. My brother said that he could do better. He could pay attention more. So it's just kind of fun to see what they did and what their teachers thought of them. And I think this is his second grade report card. So it's really cool. Under photographs, this actually is my little pile of lost souls. These are the pictures that my grandma did not know who they were or where they lived. She didn't know anything about them. So I kind of keep them as a memorial and a reminder to make sure that when I pass things on, somebody knows who they're attached to, what they are. We have newspaper articles and interviews. This is my grandpa, and he was a health nut. We always called him a health nut. So there's a little article about him. I could really do a story about that, especially for his time. He was really, really ahead of his time. So we have family Bibles. We've talked about books, but the cool thing about Bibles, a lot of times you may not be able to share an entire Bible, but a lot of times there is a family chart, handwritten, births, deaths, marriages. And wouldn't that be amazing to go and just make a really good high quality copy of that, frame it, and give it to someone in your family as a gift, or just make sure that they have it? I would really treasure that. This next one, this church records, that is it's a commemorative license that my great grandparents were given. This was hanging on the wall in my grandparents' house, and I always loved it. And look how beautiful that is. So you can see, just even for beauty's sake right there, it's so pretty, but it's really neat to have their handwriting on it as well. Okay, letters. If you have a bunch of letters sitting around, wouldn't it be amazing to take those letters, to put them in chronological order, maybe even match them up with the people they were writing, and make a book out of it? So it really would be a story of sorts, especially if you have letters from both sides. But even if you just have one, sometimes that may be the only journal or life history that we get from a person. But it would really make an interesting way to share your family history. So we have awards and programs. This is a Bronze Star that my grandfather was given, and I was able to research and find out where he was, what he did. I found an article or a story written by a person that was in his very company, who talked about the conditions, who talked about what the soldiers went through. And so by researching that, and it really was not very hard, I just Googled, I was able to learn a lot more about what my grandpa went through in the war. So I did make that into a nice little story so that I can share it with others. And then we have landmarks and maps. So this is a little map of a lake near where my family lived, and I love maps. I think they're so amazing. You could do a lot with this. You could draw or freehand make an X where a family member lived, and maybe where their church was, maybe where the closest town was. So you can do a lot with maps too. Okay, so I told you I'm going to give you some ideas. Here are some creative ways to share these different things. So I'm going to start out with recipes because they're useful. I just love cooking off an old recipe card that has my grandma's writing on it. I just think it's really amazing. So here are a couple things you could do. You could make a recipe of one of your relatives and serve it at a family gathering and then tell a story about it. When we're thinking about sharing family history, it doesn't always have to be going on to Ancestry and sharing a certain line or sharing the names, dates, and places. It can be sharing things like a recipe that someone made. And what I love about these recipes is they've got, little splotches on them. They have got little scratches where My grandma used to like to make things and then she would scratch something out and say, needs a little more, or don't put this in. And I just love that that was something that she used. We can print a recipe and share it with others. So if you were at a family gathering, it would be fun to make a recipe, serve it, tell a story about it or about the person who had, who owned that recipe, and then print that recipe and share it with others. Print the recipe with maybe just a little tiny biography of that person. So you're sharing family history, you're sharing their life, but you're really also sharing a recipe. So here are some other things. And I promise if you go online, there are so many things you can do. But look at how this would be something very economical and nice to do. Up on the left, take a recipe, enlarge it, make a really good high quality copy of it. So that would be scanning it probably. Or I think that our iPhone, my iPhone takes wonderful pictures, taking a really great picture of it, enlarging it, and putting it in a frame. On the back, again, I would write something about the person so that it's not just a recipe, it is attached to someone. Over here, I love this, a little tea towel. I just think that is so pretty and I love their handwriting. I think that's what makes it really nice. But I've also seen pillows, aprons, a cutting board where they will take a recipe and engrave it on there. So another thing that you could do that really would be interesting is to make copies of recipes. And honestly, you may have to probably transcribe the recipes. I know that I don't my daughters are 25 and 27, and sometimes they have a hard time reading manuscript or cursive. So it might be worth, just putting a little picture of the recipe card, but transcribing it so that people could read it. But you could make a recipe book. You could do it with a 3-ring binder, or you could actually get a book bound, and you can do that very economically, and you could share it with your family members. Okay, and this subject is family artwork. If you look at the painting up on the right, that is a painting of my grandparents' home. And there are a lot of things in that painting that have meaning. So it's just a nice painting, but I really put a lot into there. So what I would suggest, this is a great way to share family history, to kind of write someone's story through a picture. Find a subject that you want to talk about, whether it's maybe some grandparents, a home, pets, whatever you want to talk about. Decide what you want to do. Find an artist. So you may be an artist or you may be able to decently get by, and that's great. You may have a friend who is a good artist. You may want to hire a professional. But I have a friend who is a great artist and she painted this for us. Now it was really tricky because I did not have the exact picture I wanted. So I probably had to take 20 pictures and show them to her and keep telling her where something should go and adjusting something before we actually got it right. And so anyways, just that picture itself, it's an oil painting. I took it in and I got prints made. It was very reasonable. I think it was, $10 a print for an art print. And so I had prints made and I'm planning on sending those to my family. But you can also do just even a photo of it, which I have done. So I took a picture of it with my iPhone and printed it, and it turned out great. So you could do it that way. But I also had it made into a puzzle, which is so cute. So that is, what a great little family gift. And that's something that you could do with any picture, with anything you have related to family. And that's just a fun little thing. Again, I would attach something to it. I wouldn't just give this away without saying, hey, this is what this is. This is why it's important. This is who it is attached to. I did turn this picture into a book because I got thinking about it. My grandparents built it. And so I talked to my mom and to my aunts about, hey, how did this come about? How did your parents build this house? Where was it? What happened? And so I have a whole story. If you can see on the left, the animals, those are a few. My grandpa had lots of animals. He's a big animal lover. These are some of the little pets they had. And so I did a little picture of pets. And then, like I said, you don't have to be a totally great artist. My aunt drew this little floor plan of, and this is from her memory of the home that her parents built. And so my mom looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, that's it." And I thought, "Oh, that was really neat to see." And I think she really enjoyed doing it. So even something as simple as maybe a picture of a house and then some drawings as people remembered it of the rooms in the house, that has so much meaning to it. And then at the very end, I made a little picture search, and this is mainly for the younger kids in my family. But in the picture, I wanted to make sure that my grandpa's animals were represented. So I put a bunch of animals in there, and you can see here is a little search. So like, where's Grandpa's tractor, the pond, lily pads, Harvey the goose, Grandpa's boat. So you can see I made it into something so that the kids will really enjoy it and hopefully get into it. There is a lot of text as well that I wrote in the story, but I really, really enjoyed doing this and learning more about this family. So again, it could be just the picture as long as you attach something to it. It could be just a few animal friends. I mean, any of these could just be their own standalone way of sharing something about your family history. Okay, so I am very lucky in the fact that my grandparents both wrote their personal history. And I think it was due to my aunt and my mom's promptings. One day, my grandpa finally decided he was going to do it, and he took a bunch of sharpened pencils out to his little workshop, and he would sit out there. And I think he did it for several months in the winter. He would go out there and just write his personal history. And I really treasure that. That is something amazing. And I have not done much with that. My aunt really worked hard on that. But here is something that I found just such a charming little piece of my grandpa. If you can see up on the top left, there's this little perpetual diary. And I've got a page on there. You can see that's his handwriting. But I wanted to make sure that it was kept to make sure that everybody could see it. So this is a document or a presentation I actually made on Google Slides. These are just three of them. But what I did was I just wrote down everything that my grandpa wrote. So for instance, here is the very front page. This is the perpetual diary and daily reminder in 1940 of Robert Dale Freeman, Union, Michigan. Color of hair, brown. Color of eyes, gray. So that was written in there. And then you can see January 1st, he is talking about the things that he did. So they went to church, the Oakland Avenue Church, attended New Year's services, enjoyed lunch at the Dixie Sandwich Shop. I helped. That's really not something you hear very often in a kid's journal these days. Weather was cold and snowy. So just having that little bit of information, I was able to find out where the Oakland Avenue Church was and the history of that church. Over on the right side, you can see I found a picture of the Dixie sandwich shop that Grandpa mentioned, and here was a little advertisement for it. So we get a picture of where he was, and then I was able to go online and say, on January 1st, 1940, what was the weather in Union, Michigan? And we learned it was -9, windy and snowing in Union, Michigan on this day. Now, the funny thing about this journal, if it's winter, I find that Grandpa is usually stuck in a snowbank, or, he's trying to get somewhere and it's snowing. So it does snow a lot. In the second one, Grandpa talks about, oh, he ran into a snowbank coming home from work. Yep, he's always running into them. January 3rd, he went shooting with Dwayne on Simonton Lake. The weather was same as yesterday, which we know was very cold. But anyways, I researched and found Simonton Lake and a little bit of a history about the lake. So you can see how you can take someone's words, even a daily journal. It doesn't seem very interesting. I worked today, I ran into a snowbank. It was cold. And a lot of his entries are definitely more on that end rather than descriptive and wordy. But if we really just do a little bit of research and figure out what is he talking about, then it makes it so much more interesting and we learn so much more about this person. Now, what I have done is I really use Google Slides a lot. I just create what I want on Google Slides, and then you can turn it into a PDF and you can upload it to a publisher. I found a publisher that will publish books for $8, children's book sizes, which this would probably be. So this is something that you can do, and it's really not expensive at all. Okay, so here we have family trees, and I want to talk a little bit about this. You have a lot of options with family trees. And if we're thinking about sharing family history, this is really one of the main things that I tend to think of. Oh, yeah, I'm going to share my family tree. But today we have so many options. So you can see down here in the bottom middle, there is this blank family tree. And on the bottom right is a filled in family tree. And I did that just so that you can see this is a family tree that I purchased off of Amazon, and it was blank. My daughter hand lettered all of these relatives in there and we colored it. We got a really good quality colored pencil and colored the tree. And you can just see how pretty it turned out. And I did this for a client that I have that had asked me, to research her family. And she was so thrilled with it. She and her husband went and got copies for everyone in their family and framed them. And that was a Christmas gift for their family. So, something I did in that blank area, I added the grandkids, all of their grandkids, so that the kids could come over and see their names on grandma and grandpa's tree. And they love it. They love, looking for their name. So, really, this took quite a bit of time. It did not take a lot of money, but look at how meaningful that is and how beautiful it is. It's just a really pretty piece of artwork, I think. In the lower left, we have a family tree that somebody just wrote out, and it's a pretty old one you can see. But really, wouldn't that just be beautiful to hang on your wall or to have framed in a frame on your desk or something? So, really, it can be something you already have. If you think creatively, just print it on some really nice paper and make sure that it's a good, high quality print and frame it. And it's, just looks like $1,000,000 and something very meaningful. Now, in the top left, I want to share, this is something that we do offer at the BYU Family History Center. I know that they also offer it at Roots Tech, and uh, they may offer at some of the other family history centers. I don't know, Sister Leveler, you're gonna have to tell me. But this is a fan chart, and you can have your fan chart printed. Now, we do it at the library. I think it's, 10, about $10 or less. And
$7, I think. $7 for a big one and like 350 for a
oh,
smaller one.
yeah, $7. And the big one is like 2 feet by 3 feet. I mean, it is a nice big thing that you can put on your wall. I mean, so inexpensive, and it's really, really cool to see. And I love it. So,
Michelle, can I ask you a question? There's a question in the chat. It says, this is from Shauna. She said, these are excellent ideas. I'm wondering if there are tools or apps or websites for beginners to learn how to create these items.
absolutely. Yes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, we'll move along here. Okay, in fact, look at this. So I have done this before, and it just gives you great ideas. If you Google family history gifts, you can find DIY gifts. You can find things that maybe people on Etsy will make for you, depending on what you want to do. But really, if you even like, see here, this one is a quick and easy family history gift ideas, which I think definitely would be made for beginners. If you want help or want ideas, you can always reach out to one of us at the BYU Family History Center, or you can reach me directly if you have questions. But there are so many resources out there of things that you can do. So, even if you're a beginner, especially if you're a beginner, don't be afraid. Just look it up and learn it. You might need to say, I need a tutorial on printing a family tree. And somewhere, somebody has made a video about that. So I would just say, research a little and ask a lot, so you can, again, ask any of us at the library. You can call us. We have virtual help. You can email us. So anytime that you have a question. And also, I was just told that, that at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, you can also print those big fan charts, and they are free there. So you can print a 2 by 3, that really colorful fan chart, and that is free. So that's kind of a cool thing. Okay, so I wanted to show you this as well. Hopefully, most of you are part of Family Search. And if you are, you can use the Family History Technology Lab. And what is so cool about this has games that you can do, like ancestor games. It'll make up little games. It'll show you a virtual pedigree. It'll find things that maybe look wrong in your tree and help you with that. But there are just a lot of really cool things on here. And right here, I'm just going to click this so that you can see. Here we are at the Family Technology Lab. And all we do is, I'm just going to say, I want to log in with Family Search. Okay, so now I'm logged in. And again, so if I want to go over to Ancestor Games, if I go down here and choose my Ancestor Games, I already logged in, but it's wanting me to do it again. Okay, so we can do a matching game. So how many players you want? Let's say that I want 3 players and I want it medium. Okay, so they make a little game board, which, what they'll do is take pictures from your family tree and make a little game out of them. Oh, there was my husband. So how cute. Isn't that just so cute? I'm sure there is a way that you could make this yourself and print it, but I just think this is such a cute thing. And especially if you have grandkids or, I mean, anybody, I'm having a good time playing this little match game. So this is a really fun thing. They have a word search or word scramble, family photo shoot, which is like a puzzle that you put together. This is just a really, really cool website. I really like it. So I encourage you all to go take a look at that. You can see the URL is right up here, fhtl.org/ancestor-games. So that's the games, but if you want to go, to the front, you can go here. So I would suggest looking at that. There are a lot of really cool things that they have, and they're all free. I also wanted to show you that if you do go over to FamilySearch, okay, so we'll go to FamilySearch, and I am going to quickly log in so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to go here. Let's see. I'm actually going to go down kind of to the bottom. If you look here in this solutions gallery, there are some apps and ideas of things that you can do here. So these are family tree management. But if you go, you can see right here, this is genealogy wall charts. So that is something that you can use with FamilySearch, and you can make a chart there. Here is a family tree chart. Oh, here's Jenny Epperty. So if you want to make a game, you could go there. And again, these are all things that we can use for free. So it is worth looking. Here you can create a memories book with this app and map my cousins. That would be a fun thing maybe to print out. So here's another place that you can go for that. You can also go here to activities and just say all activities. And you can figure out, these are things that you can print out that really are kind of cool if you want to know where you're from. So this shows my family history through a map. So you can see, that my ancestors come from Germany and they come from this area. So that's one thing you can do. You can look at that. You can look at famous relatives. You could record something. And so there are so many things that you can do here. Also, oh, this is kind of cool. Here's an ancestors calendar. So, you look on here and you can subscribe to it and it'll send you little messages saying whose birthday is when. And that's a fun thing. Also, with FamilySearch, if you just Google FamilySearch, family tree maker, something like that, it gives you, it's kind of an old link, but it's still out there. And you can just connect it to FamilySearch and you can print all different kinds of family trees that are just really, really pretty. So they have little decorative ones where the leaves are made out of names of people in the family. So there's just a lot of fun things to do there. Okay, so just before we leave, we want to remember why this is important. Again, here is my sad little pile of lost souls. Nobody knows who they are. There's nothing attached to them. They were here and they lived a life. They loved, they had families, they had careers, they had hobbies, they had favorite colors and foods they liked, but no one knows who they are. And so we have to make sure that these people are remembered after we are gone, especially if you're an older person or maybe you have very few relatives left. Please be sure that some kind of information is left with your ancestors so that you're not the last one to remember and know who they are. Okay, so if you want to learn more, this is your pathway. You go to the BYU Family History Library, and this website, we're in the process of changing it. So this will always get you there for now, and they will direct you to the new website if needed. But then you go to classes and webinars, Sunday classes, virtual classes, and then virtual archive by speaker. This is me. If you want to look at any of my classes, I do teach one about preserving artifacts, preserving photos, digitizing, and how to do that whole big project. But there are other wonderful speakers. You can also look at them by subject. So, really, anything that you want to learn about, that is just one resource. Okay, yeah, here are just a couple. We have capturing and preserving memories with your phone, how to use FamilySearch Memories app, which is really a wonderful thing, getting started with family history. So you can see those are just a few things that I have done. But again, there are wonderful teachers and we have wonderful, wonderful things there. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, reach out if you have any questions. You can just Google the BYU Family History Center or BYU Family History Library. And if we can't answer your question, we will find someone that can. So happy crafting, everybody. I hope that you make a lot of really cool things and share your family history.